Welcome to the Corner Office Podcast. We're back for round 2 with my man, Marc Lafleur. How you doing, man?
Dude, it's good to be back.
Thank you for coming on, man. Like, when you messaged me and you said, like, I'm back in town, I was like, man, we got to do this.
It's time to link up. Yeah, I've been back now, I guess, 2 weeks, so finally settling back in.
You're staying in Cornwall, right?
Yeah, we're in Cornwall. So my hometown is Cornwall. Full-time, we're in Kitchener. But then for December, we've got a place out there. So, come back, see friends, spend some time with family. And
yeah. How do you like Kitchener, by the way?
I like Kitchener a lot.
Yeah?
I think that, like, if given the option, I probably wouldn't be in Ontario. But with family and kind of where we set our roots, we got to be in Ontario. So if I had to be in Ontario, Kitchener's where I want to be.
Really? Not Toronto?
No. Especially now. Toronto's like Gotham City now, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, honestly, what is it? So, December 2023, like, you can't spend any time in Toronto without seeing some sort of like crazy crime, and not like like harmless stuff that you could deal with like 4 or 5 years ago. Now there's like just crazy things going on all the time. So like, to be honest, we're avoiding Toronto. If we go there, we'll take the train.
Okay.
Kitchener's good. Like, we like Kitchener. I think Kitchener for a while was being considered the Silicon Valley of the North, right? So Kitchener had Google. They have Google. They've got Shopify. They've got Communitech, they've got Catalyst, they've got all these great sort of startup, founder-friendly ecosystems set up. So for us, being there is kind of like the compromise. Like, I like being in the city. Like, if I could be anywhere, I'd love to be in New York, to be honest.
Okay.
There's nowhere that inspires me more than, walking down in Manhattan, just like 7 a.m. and you got like people in their suits, AirPods on, just like running shoes, and there's power walking into the office. I love it. Like, it's great energy. But having to be in Ontario, I like being in Kitchener. It's kind of that happy middle ground of, you get a bit of a city vibe. I know if you're from the city, you're like, Kitchener's tiny, but coming from Cornwall, Kitchener's actually got a lot going on. And for me, it's just kind of where we look at and kind of find home. My wife's family's from there, and then for us, it's the easiest to find other founders and recruit talent.
Yeah. I see your spot online, like on Instagram, that you got a nice patio going out there, eh?
Dude, it's nice, man. So we always joke, like, we've always been like very big like balcony people, but we've just never had a balcony. So we've had like these like tiny little, like when we were building True Local, we had this like, man, like, you open the door, you can barely fit a chair out there, and it's facing like a main street. It was just garbage, and we would spend any night we could. We would spend like just like half an hour up there, just kind of like decompress. So we loved it, and it's hard to find like a big balcony, big patio type thing. So the place that we live in Kitchener is this, we're so fortunate. It's this beautiful, it's like 2,200 square foot apartment, 1 floor, and it has this 300 square foot terrace.
It's massive.
It's awesome. It's really good. Yeah.
2,200 square foot, 1 floor apartment.
Yeah. It's pretty nice. a long way from Cornwall.
Yeah. So what have you been up to since we last spoke in March?
Yeah, man. So March, huh? So,
yeah, what's going on?
Lots of stuff. So I guess like, all last year, I was pretty much still under contract with True Local. So we sold the company 3 years ago now. I was on a 2-year contract with them up until December of last year. And then that ended. So then, free agent again, and, immediately kind of had these ideas of how I wanted to structure my life and what I wanted to be working on for more like a long-term perspective, which I think is different than how I've lived most of my life, which has always been, okay, I know where I want to go. I don't necessarily know what the long-term plans to get there are, but if I just tackle the short-term things in front of me, eventually the path will just, reveal itself as long as I'm walking in the right direction. I think now a lot of it's been more about, well, what do I want to do for a long period of time? I think that when you look at a lot of founders, especially first-time founders who got into business because, they wanted a better life and didn't have a lot of money, and, they're like, I want to kind of get after it and be financially free and whatever it is. A lot of them, at least this was my experience, you kind of have a short-term outlook on things. You're like, I'm down to do it for 5 years, but it's hard to think past 5 years. You're probably already broke already, so you don't really want to think about life 5 years from now still being broke. So 5 years, kind of that mark where you're like, okay, in 5 years I will have made it. It served me well, so I can't talk anything against it. But the one thing I will say is that you can only build something so great in 5 years. And of course there's outliers, but you really kind of start to realize with experience, and you just start reading about some of the greatest people and greatest companies, but things start to ramp up at year 5. That's really where things kind of start to take off. So the first thing I was thinking about, coming back sort of into the game in January of this year was, what do I want to do for 10 years? Like, I need to want to do something for 10 years. And with True Local, it was always built to sell, built to sell, built to sell.
Yeah.
The entire reason True Local at the time existed was because I was tired of being broke. And I wanted to build something, and I wanted to prove to everybody that, either didn't believe I was going to graduate school, or didn't want to invest early on, or just didn't think we could do it, that we could make it happen. So I started being like, okay, what do I want to do over the course of 10 years? And I started kind of working backwards from like, if it's something I want to do for 10 years, it's got to be grand. Like, I get really excited. I think the quote from last time I was on is like, I'm the best version of myself when I'm chasing things. So to me, it's very important that I'm selective about what I'm chasing, because I'm going to go all in on it. So I wanted to chase something grand, and, I don't exactly know what that was, or I didn't know what that was. I still don't know what it is. So I started kind of working where it's like, okay, it's got to be grand. I want to go after something big. And that could be, there's so many different ways to express what is something grand, what is something big. Is it financially big? Is it impact? It's all these different things. So because I was just being honest with myself, I just kind of fulfilled my life's purpose at the time, which was to build and sell this company. Like, that's what I lived for. I was just being honest with myself, and I was like, well, I don't know exactly what that next grand thing is, but step 1, first principles, 10 years. So then I worked down from there, and I was like, okay, well, what's going to keep me excited and motivated for 10 years? And honestly, what it boiled down to was the people. And it sounds so cheesy and cliche, but it's not, because it's like, I want to work with people that inspire me every single day, and that I inspire, because I get inspired when I'm able to inspire people. And then if they're doing work and they're inspiring me, then like, that's what I want to do every day. And that gets me excited, like just being around cool people that are crushing it. So I was like, okay, that's going to be step 1. Is I don't even care what problem we're solving. I don't care what product we're building. I need to put a team together that inspires me, and I can inspire, and we can just look to build and bring that sort of whole vibe and culture and see what you can accomplish with it. So the thing that is a joke about all this is that this is not founder advice at all. This is not how you start a company. I highly recommend avoid going down this road, but fortunately, second time founder, I get to fund a lot of this myself. We've got a track record. I feel like I can kind of take this road, and I'm willing to take these risks to sort of figure it out. So essentially, it wasn't about the product. It wasn't about a solution. It wasn't about the market. It was, because I'm thinking about something for 10 years, I know that year 1 is probably just going to be setting up the framework for how we can get there in 10 years. And to me, that was find the right people first. So the way I wanted to look at it was, I need to set up a lab. And really what my mind was that if I can find the right people, and we can learn as quickly as possible how to bring out the best in ourselves, and also how to problem solve at a high level, and we can do all of the things that are required if you were to actually know what you wanted to do, which is, okay, where are the opportunities in the market? What markets currently have, a huge, sort of, and you can use all these different terms if you want to use a blue ocean or whatever, but like, pretty much, where's the opportunity? So how can we assess that? And that's like the skill in itself. Like, how do we assess that? Then it's like, okay, well, once we can figure out where we want to go, do we actually have the skills to design a solution in this? And of course, if it's a service based, then we got to figure out, how do you design a service around solving this problem? If it's a product, can we do product design? And then once you kind of figure that out, it's like, okay, well, do you have the skills and resources to actually develop the solution for this market? Okay, so let's say we can do that. And then, well, the final thing is, can you actually go to market? And these are all just different steps that every business has to take. But we're kind of like, the way I was looking at it, where it's mostly, let's start with the people, was we will figure out that along the way. And essentially, that's what I did in May, which is we started a lab called DB8 Labs. And the whole purpose was like, I'm going to put 5 people together, and I knew exactly who I wanted to hire at the time. And I brought them all together, and it's like, listen, we're going to spend 1 year, and we are just going to explore what's happening in the space. We are going to look and research and learn, because there is so much going on. Like, we just came out of the whole kind of blockchain rise and fall, and it's amazing to watch this technology that has so much opportunity and so much excitement and hype essentially just fizzle out, yet knowing that that technology is still equally as valuable and as valid. It's just the business models didn't work. So it's kind of cool to live through that and understand it, because we're living through the exact same thing with AI. So in November of last year, obviously, the whole world changed when consumer AI became mainstream with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. So we came out in May of this year and we're like, look, we are just going to use these new technologies. We are going to learn from a first principles perspective what these technologies can do. And hopefully with that new level of skill, because we're playing in the space, we're actually building in the space, we'll be well positioned that when the dust settles and when the current business models that, in my opinion, are overhyped start to kind of die down and the more long-term sustainable business models end up materializing, we'll have the skill set. And not only will we have the skill set because we spent time building in the space, but we'll also have figured out how to work together and get the most out of the team so that it's not like a 1 + 1 = 2, it's like a 1 + 1 = 5. So, that was in May. And the way I look at it is that, like, once again, when we talk about these hype cycles, the problem with these new technologies is that you will get a brand new technology. And let's use blockchain as an example because everybody was fairly familiar with it, whether it's through Bitcoin or, NFTs or distributed ledgers. But this new technology comes out and the technology has a ton of value. But the problem is that all of the first people to get into the space don't actually care about the technology. What they care about is making money as fast as possible. And when there's a new technology, it's very easy to make money very fast because you don't actually have to solve a problem or create value. You can just build something and tack the name onto it and somehow say how it's better. And you saw this essentially with NFTs.
Yeah.
So you had this amazing technology, which is distributed ledgers and blockchain, just getting absolutely dragged through the mud because the only thing people were using it for was to create ape pictures, essentially. Now, of course, there's some great teams out there that were doing some good projects, but for the most part, everybody saw it as a money grab. So all of these people ran into the space, creating business models that added no value with a hope to try to maximize their returns in a short period of time before the fad essentially faded out. And once again, that doesn't, and it shouldn't, and it's unfortunate that it takes away from the value of the technology because you got these shitty business models on top of a great technology. Now everybody thinks the technology sucks because of these bad business models. And I think a lot of that is now happening with AI. So to me, when you think about hearing about how a new technology is overhyped, yes, there is aspects of the technology that's overhyped, but it's not the technology that's overhyped. It's the business models that are overhyped. So with AI, there's no question that AI is here to stay. However, this idea of just creating these little GPTs on top of it, or the idea of, just there's so many things happening with ChatGPT for this, ChatGPT for that, that, in my opinion, will run its course. And essentially what you'll be left with is people now thinking that this AI isn't as powerful or as capable as it is because they've seen it a million times. And it's all been these like very superficial business models. And the people that can survive that wave, I think, will be around to actually execute on the business models that will provide value. So our philosophy has been, okay, if we want to run this lab and learn how to learn and just become great at running running businesses and solving problems, well, let's get in the weeds, start building in the space. But instead of going all in on the current obvious choice when it comes to building with AI, let's just go ahead and instead of deciding concretely on a business model that we're going to do in this space, let's just like sharpen our iron with the skills that are required to build these sorts of products and build in this space instead of going all in on like, this is the business that we're going to do. So once again, like I said, that by that way, when all this stuff kind of fades down and we start to kind of see where the industry is going and what models, the business models will actually have value in the future. Well, now we've got experience in the space. We've built in the space. We know what the capabilities are. We know what the technology can do. And we didn't, kind of blow our whole load going all in on this like very superficial business model that I don't think necessarily will be around in 3 years or 2 years. So what that leads to is, I know the original question was, what am I up to now? And I went through this whole thing, but the whole point is that that's it. We've been taking on a ton of client work for custom AI solutions. So we pretty much train models. So essentially what people realize is they want to use ChatGPT. They get very excited when they use ChatGPT for the first time. They love how it's amazing at enhancing their ability to brainstorm. And it does a really good job of wowing you on the first couple goes. But what people seem to find out is that trying to incorporate ChatGPT specifically on a day-to-day basis as a replacement for one of your existing tools or as a way to replace a task that takes a lot of time from you is actually quite time consuming. And really ChatGPT only gets you about 60% of the way there. And then you have to go in and do all this editing. And what a lot of people do is after a week, they're like, you know what, it was just easier to do it myself. So once again, that's not a knock on AI. It's just, people either aren't properly using the technology, or it's just not as, sticky as it could be. So what we've found is that if we can take our expertise as prompt engineers, because what we do is we spend a ton of time just researching the best ways to interact with these models, then we can take these models, so something like GPT-4, which powers ChatGPT, and we can get it to get your results 90% of the way there rather than just being 60% of the way there.
Really?
So when you think about like a business, instead of them just having to log into ChatGPT all the time and repeat the same prompts and repeat the same questions and still getting a big variety of answers, we can come in and create a unique user interface based on your business's needs. And we'll actually go in and train the model so that it is answering questions in the way that you need it to answer questions, depending on what sort of requirements you have for your business. And our whole essentially philosophy is that we'll get you from 60% of the way there to 90% of the way there. So that's what we were doing for about 2 months. And it was, very successful for us. And once again, it forces us all the time to learn what the capabilities of this tech is. Like, what are the best models to use? Should you always be defaulting to OpenAI because they're the most popular? Or should you check out something from Anthropic? Or should you look at, an open source model on, Hugging Face or whatever it is? And we get to spend time exploring that. And like, what is the best way to prompt these models? And, is it where does the power of these models come from? Is it the model itself, or is it the tools it has access to? So, and once again, I know I'm kind of just like giving a very 30,000 square foot view. We can double tap on any of that. But essentially, it's been really allowing us to get, roll up our sleeves and get in the space. And then now we've kind of hit the next milestone of our business, which is we're launching a product. So a lot of what we were doing is when the business started, when we started the lab, it was, okay, we're getting a very good skill set with this AI prompt engineering. Well, where can we deploy this now? Well, we started realizing, what's an industry that could benefit the most from this? And we essentially realized that one of the best industries for this is real estate. And the reason being is because agents tend to, and no offense to anybody listening, agents tend to, be a little bit slower to adopt the new technologies. Now, the joke is, it's that even though they're reluctant to adopt the new technology, that doesn't mean they don't eventually get to it. They just fall behind. So it's not like their idea of not adopting this technology was necessarily a good idea. It's just that they were late to the party. And that's kind of historic across the board when it comes to social media marketing, when it comes to, adopting CRMs, when it comes to, and now it's the same with coming to AI. So we realized that, okay, this is a group of individuals that could really benefit from this tech, because usually part of the hesitation when it comes to using new technology with agents is the fact that it's confusing. Like, really, at the end of the day, if you're not super tech savvy, a lot of the times, a lot of these softwares and a lot of these different tools, they aren't made for realtors. They're made for a digital savvy individual who knows what all the buttons mean, and they're in different places, So it's like,
yeah, I find that funny because the average agent is over 50 years old. So, not to say that older people are not tech savvy, but yeah, to some extent it is true. And what you were saying about GPT, 60% of the way there. I've used it to write scripts, listings, listing descriptions, all that stuff. But it feels very generic. I don't know if you've found that, but for me, it just feels like every time I ask something, it would be just rephrase of something that I've already seen before. And yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what it is. We see that all the time, and that's the biggest struggle. So that's where you really do need to take some prompt engineering and go in and spend the time to get that model to do what you want it to do. So I always use an example here. You look at like the New York Times will come out and say like, hey, here are the top 5 prompts for real estate agents. And it's like a prompt on, how to respond to an email. It's a prompt on like how to write a listing description. It's a prompt on like how to write a blog, whatever. And these prompts are like a paragraph. And I always joke, but, so the product we built, so it's actually called realestatecontent.ai. So it's super straightforward. And essentially, when we do client avatars is one of the features of this. So essentially, instead of sitting in a room with your whole team and figuring out who is your ideal client, and your ideal client is not everybody, the 50-year-old agent might be like, oh, it's everybody. Like, that's a lie. And you're hardening yourself and the client by believing that. So you have to understand that there is an ideal client out there for you. And what a lot of agents will do is they'll sit around as a team and they'll brainstorm, hey, it's Carl who makes $100,000 a year. They're a school teacher, and this is what they're looking for, and this is the perfect house for them. Well, we've created a model that'll just do that for you in like 10 seconds. And then we also have it where it'll write blogs specifically tailored to that perfect client using your brand, your brand's name, using your brand's voice, using your niche, all these types of things.
Voice.
Yeah. So that's the hardest, most expensive part.
So that'd be my voice.
Yeah.
Like that's my brand. I'm the one talking, right? So it would use my voice and
by voice, I mean just writing tone. So the tone, like the tone of writing.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
So,
Okay, not
be
actually
clear on
the
that.
sound. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, not the actual voice, like your literal voice, but like, for example, what I mean is that if you have a certain writing style or you want it to be written a certain way, then this blog will be written in a way that you can choose. Maybe it's either you want it to write in your style, or maybe you want it to write in the style that's best going to resonate with your ideal client. So the point though is that even just our blog, like, you know, and it's not to say that the length of a prompt necessarily dictates the quality, but you see like, this is the best prompt for agents from the New York Times. It's like a paragraph. Ours is like 3 pages long. Just getting it up there to understand the role that it needs to play, but not just saying, hey, you're a professional copywriter. It's like, no. This is, you know, you're a professional copywriter from this business during this time period that specializes in this type of writing. And then giving it example after example after example of how you want it to write. And then once again, teaching it. So not just the examples, but then teaching it what does make a perfect blog. And being as descriptive as possible and going through it. And once again, if you try to write it out, it's like multiple pages. But then when you fix that and get it done right once, now every time you ask it to write you a blog, you know, you're spending 10% of your time editing rather than 40%.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been a big win for us, was bringing AI and tailoring it specifically to agents in the real estate space. And what really helped also was that when we started exploring AI for real estate, of course, everybody is looking at it from, okay, I want to be an end-to-end solution. So when we talk about, you know, agents in real estate, you know, there's obviously the idea of prospecting. So you've got to generate leads. You've got to then nurture those leads. Then when you've got those leads nurtured, you got to close them as clients. And there's a bunch of documents that can go through that. Then once you've got them as clients, there's the whole process of showing them houses or having their house ready to be listed. And then you've got the idea of closing, and you know all this. And I always say I'm not a realtor, so I preface that. I'm a marketing AI guy at this point. So there's all these different things that we wanted to explore to see, can we build a solution that handles all of that? And the answer is no, we can't come in and do that. I'm sure there's probably, you know, a large team that can make that happen, but we realized that there was just these break points where you would have to use another service anyway. So maybe you could use ours for the top 3 things, but then you can't use ours for the 4th, and then you come back to ours for the 5th. And it was like, if we couldn't do all of it, then what we should do is just focus on one specific area. And what we realized after talking, we must have talked to hundreds of agents. And really what ends up happening is that they struggle the most with content. Really, like, it's a huge struggle when you look at every other industry out there knows the power of social media, knows the power of copywriting, knows the power of having a social media profile, knows the power of having SEO and just putting yourself out there and being a thought leader and providing content that has value. Every other industry knows the value of that.
Yeah, that's so true. I could shoot 100 reels sitting right here. I just can't think of what to say. Like, you know, like I do think, and then I write a couple notes down in my phone, and then by that time, I forgot the other thing. Like, it's all over the place. So like you're saying that you guys will come up with content for agents to write.
Yeah,
not to write, to make videos of and stuff like that.
Yeah, so actually the next feature that we have coming out is actually a script writer. So once again, you can ask ChatGPT to do this. However, ChatGPT out the gate is not going to take the perspective of you as an agent. It's not going to know who your ideal customer is, all this type of stuff. So we've done all that. So right now the way it works is realestatecontent.ai. It's the simplest thing. It'll literally, you go into it and you have a content calendar. So this content calendar will connect to your social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it also does the blogs. And what it'll do is you'll choose a theme for the month, choose what week you want that theme to be related to. So let's say, for an example, it's December, and you know, you want to actually create content that's interesting to your audience that isn't just like just sold or just listed. So you know how much time it takes to create content, to write a caption, to put an image up. You're probably not spending as much time as you should to have those posts go out if they're not hard sales. Like, a lot of agents find that it's like, hey, listen, if I'm going to take the time to put it out there, I want a call to action, like do this, do that. When really what you need to do is you need to have a consistent stream of content that is speaking to your audience. So anyway, long story short is that you would go and you would choose a theme. Let's say it's December, how to improve your chances of closing a deal in December if you're forced to sell. Let's just use an example because that's a relevant thing right now. Well, you type that in, and then what you would do is choose what days you want to post on. So maybe you want to post on Monday, Tuesday, Friday. And then you'll choose what platforms you want to create a post for. and hit generate. And within 10 minutes, you'll have all of your Facebook posts, all of your Instagram posts, your Twitter posts, your blogs.
Already drafted,
Ready to go.
All you do is press post. You don't even have to like copy and paste it into the app.
No. So literally what you'll do is you'll review them to make sure that the way you want. If you want to change a word here or there, you can go through, click edit. We also generate the images for you, so you can swap those out, because maybe it's easy for you to have the images. You have the images, you don't write the captions. So you can swap out the images, and then literally once you approve it, you click post, and it will post to your social platforms. Done and done. So our whole value prop is that, and it's $99 a month. So our whole thing is that you can have all of your content done for the month in 10 to 20 minutes a month for $99. And then you set it, forget it, come back again a month later.
So what happens when you got, that sounds amazing, by the way, but what happens when you got a lot of clients, and like, do you see it being repetitive if a lot of your clients are typing in the same stuff, and then like, you know, as a consumer, you may follow a few agents and you see the same kind of stuff over and over again? Is that the thing?
Yeah. So I think the question then there becomes, is that like a issue in terms of spitting out outputs that are repetitive, or should your themes be more unique?
Okay.
Right. So if you have essentially, let's say there's 10 different agents and they all choose
like a Merry Christmas, like
Merry Christmas
like,
theme. Yeah.
You know, thank you to my clients, blah, blah, blah. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
For sure. So I would say this is something that's a little bit better for like value add posts.
Okay.
So more like information type stuff. So let's say like, hey, what are the top 3 things to do in Ottawa in January?
Gotcha.
You know, something that's kind of like, okay, here's some like information for you. If it's something where you're like, I just want to say something really nice to my, you know, my followers, then where the uniqueness will come in is the fact that it's asked you at least 5 questions about you and your brand prior to you even starting to generate. Okay. So what you do is it starts off and it takes you through an onboarding. So once again, we wanted to make this as easy as possible for agents, because this is literally for that 50-year-old agent. And where I was going with this is that AI to me is such an interesting opportunity in real estate, because most of these new technologies that come out, they are technically prohibitive. Like if you don't feel comfortable using your phone, or you don't feel comfortable navigating a browser, it's a little bit intimidating. AI is the opposite of that. And a lot of people are reluctant to touch it because they think it's complex. But AI is, you literally just talk to it, tell it what you want it to do. And the whole point of it is that it will go and do that thing or give you that answer. So I think a lot of people have this misguided feel about how complicated AI is. So we know that. So we brought that to this product. And in addition, we just walk agents straight through the whole thing. So when you sign up, you're literally going to get asked 5 questions. What's the name of yourself or your brokerage or your team or whatever you want to call it? You know, who's your ideal client? So like, who are you going after? Like, would you say, so for example, here's a generic example. I help first-time home buyers. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Gen Z, you know, yeah.
Exactly. What I would say is a better way to approach that is like, I use an example, and I don't know if this is actually a real thing, but like, you know, we help, we help millennials find houses that are uniquely equipped to be work from home spaces. So something specific, you know, like it could be something specific.
That was very specific.
Yeah, super specific, you know. But once again, like you got to think about it. Like I think there's a whole part in real estate. Like I think the whole industry has got to start looking at changing when it comes to standing out. There's so many agents. I know there's not as many as there were, but like I think that if there was an agent or agents that really, really drilled down on, you know what, like I am the person who specializes in houses that have the sickest backyard for landscaping. Let's just like use an example. You'll of course service everybody, but at the end of the day, if you want to position yourself uniquely in the market, like what's the better thing to do? Compete with another, you know, I don't know, like what is there, 70,000 agents in Toronto or something?
Yeah, there's
crazy?
70,000. There's over 4,000 in Ottawa. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the thing? Like 4,000 people competing over 1 million home buyers, and you're gonna get like a few of those, or would you rather be one of 10 agents competing for 500 home buyers, but you're gonna split each of those 100, 100, 100, right? So where we're going with it is like, once again, you can, when it asks you what you specialize in, it's totally fine. If you want to go in there and put in that I specialize in first-time home buyers, no problem. It'll guide you through that. It'll ask you then to put a bio about yourself. So just quickly write in a bio about yourself. What we say is just go ahead and copy your LinkedIn bio. If you don't have a LinkedIn bio, copy the bio from your About page on your website. Yeah. So you just throw that in there. So now every single time it gives you an answer, it knows a little bit about you. And it's going to make sure to sprinkle that throughout whatever content is coming out to make sure that it's more authentic and to make sure that it's more personalized. So to answer your question, if somebody came in, and of course, you know, we're going to have hundreds of users, a lot of them are going to ask for the same types of content, but they will all have that unique aspect of it speaking from that experience that you've put in there before.
Yeah, that's important because I feel like as your business grows, I could see it. Yeah, if you didn't have that bio aspect and personalization, I could see it becoming repetitive.
So imagine when people try to use ChatGPT to
Yeah,
write content, it doesn't have that information. It just doesn't allow you to put that stuff in. So when every
that's
time you're asking
interesting.
ChatGPT, you have to do one of two things. Either you haven't given it any context at all and you're just straight up dry asking it to be like, hey, write me this, and it's going to give you a generic thing. Or you have to take the step of priming it by giving it a prompt in advance saying, hey, here's everything you need to know about me. I want you to take this into account while you write my next post. But like, you're not gonna do that every single time. And once again, depending on what's going on with the model at that any given time, even if you wrote that same prompt, the same prompt every time, it still could give you different answers with a different vibe. So that's what we try to minimize.
That's really cool.
It's
Like,
been sweet.
I love that.
It's been fun. We just launched it like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so you launched. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me check this out offline. I'd love to try it out.
I'm gonna hook you up for sure. I would love your feedback. Like, we're still early days. We're still a small team. So like pretty much every agent that goes on is getting a reach out directly from us to be like, yo, listen,
I'd love to.
here's who we are. Here's what we're doing. Let us know how we can help. Give us any feedback. We build features really quick. Once again, the whole idea of a lab is like we spent 6 months learning how to work together well, and like we ship stuff real quick. So for us, the more feedback we get, the better.
I'm down. I'll be your guinea pig. I'll do it because I've been in the business for 12 years. I've got a team as well. So, and we're always struggling for content. Like that's like it takes up too much space in my head, and I don't want it to. Like every day I struggle. Like I didn't post a story yet. I didn't post on my main feed. I haven't posted a reel. What's going on? Like, and it's just always in my mind. And then I feel like it shouldn't be, you know, like, and like I have an administrative staff, but I feel like that's not supposed to be on their mind too. Like, hey, what Charles didn't post today. We got to post something, you know?
Totally. And here's the way that we look at it. So what we found doing the research is actually, it was actually quite simple. So there's two types of agents. You're either going to be the agent who does not currently post on social, or you're like level 1 to 2 out of 10, but you know it's important and you want to be doing it more, but you're just not, right? You're just like, you know it's good, but you're not doing it. Or on the other side, you're one of the individuals who is doing it, understands the value in it. It's a competitive edge for you, usually in the younger side of the agents, but they wish they could do it a little bit faster, a little bit better, a little bit cheaper, and a little bit less, you know, less resources and time going into it. Right now, we are focusing on the first one, which is you aren't doing any social media. You're not doing anything. This tool will get you from 0 to 5 like that. Done. You literally could spend 10 to 20 minutes and have all of your content out the door, and content that you're going to be happy with, ready to go, and you can come back and visit again next month. However, we always tell people AI will not be as good as you doing your own thing with your own voice and your own images. That's always going to be significantly better, but that's when you start talking about going from 5 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. So for us, we're starting with that. You know, if people need a default and they realize that they have to have a social presence, then this is a great tool for them. So for someone like you have a great social presence. You know what's up. I'm excited for you to get hands-on on this, because if you can tell us how to make it better, like how do we do want to tackle that next market where it's like, okay, people understand the value of social. We want this to be the ultimate tool to take exactly what you just said, which is take it off your mind. It shouldn't be something that you have to spend that much time thinking about. Go close deals. Go, you know,
it gives me anxiety.
Clients. Yeah. We want to help remove that.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, cool, man. Thanks for coming by. That's it for me. I don't know if you had anything to add.
No, I love having the conversation with you, man. I think like, you know, it's not very often that you get to come and do a podcast that's like super chill, have a conversation, just kind of be yourself. And I love it, you know, and it's cool that it's the second time on here. I want to come back again and just kind of, you know, keep building on the story. But
absolutely. Thanks again for coming on.
Yo, thanks for having me.
Cheers.